Imagine waking up in 1347. You feel fine. By evening, you have a fever. Within days, you're gone. No hospitals. No antibiotics. No germ theory. No idea what's happening. People thought it was bad air, angry planets, divine punishment, or possibly cats. This is the story of the Black Death, the pandemic that wiped out up to half of Europe and accidentally reshaped the modern world. The Black Death didn't begin in Europe. It likely started in Central Asia. From there, it traveled along trade routes, especially the Silk Road, which is a reminder, trade is great, unless it's delivering plague. By the 1340s, it reached the Black Sea. Then came one of the most dramatic disease moments in history. In 1346, Mongol forces were besieging the city of Caffa, modern-day Crimea. But something went wrong. The Mongol army began dying from a mysterious disease. And instead of retreating quietly, they did something horrifyingly creative. They reportedly catapulted infected corpses over the city walls. Yes, medieval biological warfare. The people inside Caffa panicked. Many fled by ship. Unfortunately, they brought the plague with them. Congratulations. The plague now had international shipping. In 1347, ships docked in Sicily. Sailors were sick. Some were already dead. And the disease spread quickly. From Italy to France. From France to England. From England to Scandinavia. From there to Eastern Europe. Within a few years, it was everywhere. This was not a slow-moving problem. This was medieval lightning. The disease was caused by a bacterium called Yersinia pestis, which sounds like the name of a medieval wizard. But no, it was much smaller, much sneakier, and much worse. It was carried by fleas. Yes, fleas. Tiny, jumping, annoying. The fleas lived on rats. The rats lived on ships. The ships went everywhere. So basically, medieval global trade looked like this. Silk spices, silver, tiny microscopic doom. Or more scientifically, tiny flea, rat ship city disaster. And because medieval cities were crowded, dirty, and full of, well, more rats, the system worked horrifyingly well. Rat how it actually jumped to humans. Here's what happened. A flea would bite an infected rat. The bacteria would multiply inside the flea. When the rat died, and many did, the flea needed a new meal. Enter humans. And unfortunately, humans did not appreciate being the backup option. Once humans were infected, symptoms could appear quickly. First, high fever. Then, severe weakness. Then, painful swelling of lymph nodes, called buboes. These often appeared in the neck, armpits, groin. Hence the term bubonic plague. Not a pleasant word. Not a pleasant experience. And in many cases, death could occur within days. No antibiotics. No understanding of bacteria. No real treatment. Just confusion. The bubonic plague was the most common form. But unfortunately, the bacterium had options. Pneumonic plague. This version infected the lungs, which meant it could spread through respiratory droplets. In other words, someone coughs. You inhale. Now it's your problem. This was medieval nightmare mode. Because now you didn't even need rats. Just proximity. And in crowded medieval cities? That was unavoidable. This was when the bacteria entered the bloodstream directly. It moved fast. Very fast. Sometimes symptoms appeared and worsened within hours, which, in the 1300s, gave people very little time to react, or even understand what was happening. What made the Black Death so terrifying wasn't just how deadly it was. It was how random it felt. You could be healthy on Monday, feverish on Tuesday, gone by Thursday. Families watched it move house to house, town to town, region to region, and nobody knew why. They didn't know about bacteria. They didn't know about fleas. They didn't know about transmission. All they saw was healthy, sick, dead. Over and over again. The bacteria didn't need armies. It didn't need politics. It didn't need strategy. It had trade routes, rats, fleas, crowded cities. That was enough. The Black Death wasn't dramatic because of explosions or battles. It was terrifying because it was invisible. And in the 1300s, invisible was unbeatable. Here's the scary part. People had no idea what caused it. They didn't know about bacteria, so they guessed. Some blamed foreigners, minorities, travelers, God, astrology, bad smells. Unfortunately, this led to violence and persecution. Fear spreads faster than disease. Communities turned on each other. Doctors tried treatments like bloodletting, burning herbs, wearing beak masks filled with perfume, which looked dramatic. but did not fix the problem. Estimates suggest 30% to 50% of Europe's population died. Some cities lost more than half their people. Entire villages disappeared. Workshops closed. Fields went unharvested. Church bells rang constantly. Imagine half your town gone in 2 years. It wasn't just a health crisis. It was societal shock. Now here's the twist. When that many people die, labor becomes scarce. And when labor becomes scarce, workers suddenly have leverage. Surviving peasants could demand higher wages, better conditions, more mobility. The feudal system began to weaken. Landowners struggled. Workers gained power. The Black Death didn't just kill millions. It shifted economic power. Some historians argue it helped pave the way for the Renaissance, the decline of feudalism, the rise of the middle class. That's a massive, unintended consequence. The plague didn't disappear overnight. Outbreaks continued for centuries. But the initial wave burned through so quickly because people lived in crowded conditions. Sanitation was poor. Trade routes were active. Medicine was limited. Eventually, immunity patterns changed. Urban conditions slowly improved. Public health measures evolved. But the Black Death never fully vanished. The bacterium still exists today. Fortunately, we now have antibiotics, which medieval Europe would have loved. Before the plague, Europe ran on feudalism. Peasants worked the land. Lords owned everything. Mobility? Minimal. Wages? Basically symbolic. Then suddenly, half the workforce is gone. And when half your labor force disappears, something unexpected happens. Workers become valuable. Very valuable. Peasants who survived could now say, "You want me to work your field? It'll cost you." Landowners panicked. Wages rose. Labor laws were attempted to freeze wages, because of course they were. But the balance of power had shifted. The Black Death didn't just empty villages. It disrupted the medieval economy. For the first time, ordinary workers had leverage. Not because of revolution, because of survival. Feudal lords depended on large labor forces. When that labor vanished, their control weakened. Kings began centralizing power. Urban centers gained influence. Guilds grew stronger. Some historians argue the plague helped accelerate the decline of feudalism, which means a microscopic bacterium managed to do what generations of political tension couldn't. That's impressive. In a terrifying way. Before the plague, the church was a dominant authority. It claimed spiritual guidance, protection, answers. Then the plague arrived. And prayers didn't stop it. Processions didn't stop it. Religious explanations didn't fix it. Faith didn't disappear. But doubt grew. Some people became more devout. Others became more skeptical. If a system claims certainty, and then cannot explain disaster, people start asking questions. And questions change civilizations. After the Black Death, art changed. Literature changed. Architecture changed. There was more focus on mortality, on realism, on individual experience. The idea that life was fragile and temporary became impossible to ignore. The Renaissance didn't happen overnight. But the social disruption of the plague helped create the conditions for it. When everything familiar collapses, people rethink everything. The Black Death proved something humanity keeps relearning. Disease doesn't just kill. It rearranges society. It shifts power. It exposes weaknesses. It accelerates change. Wars reshape borders. Plagues reshape systems. And sometimes, the smallest things in history have the biggest impact. If this helped you understand how one disease reshaped the world, subscribe to History Simplified. Because history isn't just kings and battles. Sometimes it's fleas. Comment below. Should we cover the Spanish flu next? Or the history of pandemics? Let's keep exploring.